Hello and welcome to episode 7 of The Kickoff, the My Betting Mates podcast, where I'm joined by Josh Parrish. Welcome, Josh.
Thanks for having me again, Matt.
Great to have you back. This week, we'll have another big round of Premier League and A-League discussion for you. And we'll switch things up this week as we'll focus on the Premier League first, given we've just had, almost a full midweek round of games completed. And obviously one of the bigger games was this morning's clash between Liverpool and Chelsea, with Liverpool perhaps not unsurprisingly picking up a dominating 4-1 win over Chelsea. It was another comprehensive performance from Liverpool, goals from Diogo Jota, Connor Bradley, Dominic Szoboszlai and Lissandro Diaz sealing the win for Liverpool. And Josh, your boy Connor Bradley, you pumped him up a couple of weeks ago. I think he'd played in a FA Cup game against Arsenal, and he caught your eye. And I think he's caught Klopp's eye as well, because he was amazing again, popping up with a goal and an assist. I'm not sure what was better, the goal or the assist, but incredible performance, incredible rise to prominence, and maybe Trent Alexander-Arnold's got something to think about at the moment.
Well, Trent Alexander-Arnold's negotiating a new contract, and what a time to be doing it. I think he should be inserting a clause there saying, I'm a central midfielder. If you dare play me at right back, you have to trigger some penalty clause, because we've got a Trent replacement lined up. I might have been accused of hyperbole 2 weeks ago, but not now, because Bradley is an absolute star. Incredible start to his Liverpool career. It wasn't his debut this season. He made his debut a season or two ago and didn't quite look kind of physically ready for the Premier League and the challenge it posed. But now he looks like an absolute machine. He was the star of the show against Chelsea in a Premier League game, which is almost unthinkable for not only a player as young and inexperienced as he is, but also for a right back.
Yeah, no, it was an incredible performance and a really important, I think, win for Liverpool in terms of just getting, I think everyone probably expected them to beat Chelsea, but those games against the traditional, sort of big four sides can still be seen as a bit of a title test, and they've passed that with flying colours, and they needed to. Obviously, Manchester City also picking up a big win this morning. As the game sort of come thick and fast, do you think Liverpool can go all the way and actually, pull off a title win here?
Well, I mean, there's going to be the emotion of the Klopp departure each and every week, and doing it for Jurgen and et cetera and so on. And I'm sure there are myriad other Premier League sides who would love nothing more than to do a Dwight Gale and interrupt that. You can never count out City. They've got a game in hand still here. They're only, if they win that game in hand, which is more than likely, they're only 2 points off the pace. But I wouldn't count anyone out at this point. I mean, Ange Postecoglou got a little crook at a journalist the other day for suggesting that Tottenham wouldn't win the Premier League title, which under any other manager would be, a pretty obvious thing to say. Of course, they're not going to win the title, but he made a point of pulling the guy up on it. Like, hey, we're not necessarily finishing trophyless this season. But I would say that Man City are still slight favourites, but I think Liverpool are in with a serious chance, given the depth that they've got, given the quality in their squad, given the attacking swagger they're playing with at the moment. I think sky's the limit.
Yeah. Looking at the rest of the Premier League midweek games, Arsenal picking up a 2-1 win over Nottingham Forest. Luton Town, perhaps the surprise result there. They beat Brighton 4-0. Brighton really up and down this year. When they're bad, they are really, really bad. Who else did we have? We had Tottenham with a narrow 3-2 win over Brentford. So I guess it's that time of year where results can tend to get a bit messy and surprising. Just games coming thick and fast. FA Cup obviously complicating things as well for some of the teams. Newcastle defeating Aston Villa 3-1. So some much needed reprieve for Eddie Howe at Newcastle. Definitely paints an interesting picture with as we head into the business end of the season. We're recording this on Thursday, so United still to play tomorrow morning against Wolves, and West Ham still to take on Bournemouth. But I don't think any of those games will really have much of an effect on the picture at either end of the table. I guess the other thing maybe to talk about is the potential managerial merry-go-round we're about to embark on. Obviously, you've mentioned Klopp's announced his departure from Liverpool at the end of the season. There's a bit of uncertainty around Arteta's future at Arsenal. I've seen him even linked with Barcelona, which I do not understand at all. Pochettino's obviously going to be talked about at Chelsea. It's not been really a good enough start for or season for them on any front. I know they're doing okay in the League Cup, but I'm sure their Premier League struggles will be giving their hierarchy something to think about. And then you've still got questions over Ten Hag at Man United and Eddie Howe at Newcastle. There could be just a complete, and Pep Guardiola is always, will he, won't he stay another year with Manchester City as well? So what do you make of this sort of managerial situation in the Premier League? I'm struggling to remember a time where so many big jobs could be potentially open at sort of one time.
Well, yeah, the Premier League is a soap opera, right? And the managers are the stars. They're first billed on the cast, really before the players. And this has been the modern era of the Premier League, the era of the superstar manager. And I think it's actually a real blow to the Premier League to lose some of the long-standing characters. I mean, we've got no Mourinho anymore, haven't for a while, who, even if his football had diminished in its effectiveness, his press conferences were still box office, maybe even better than ever. But Jurgen Klopp, one of the long-standing characters in English football and one of the most beloved figures for multiple reasons. He was... and it still is someone who, is very charming and funny in press conferences, but also he has propensity to snap at journalists randomly and create tense moments as well. So it's got a bit of complexity there. I think it's going to be really interesting in terms of how that shakes up the title picture. Look, Pep Guardiola is always thinking about, going off to New York again on sabbatical and and whatnot. But he's just got the perfect job. Like, he literally can do whatever he likes. It seems like he can spend whatever money he likes, pending 115 charges, of course. He gets to shape not just every aspect of Manchester City, but every aspect of the City Football Group's global footballing strategy in terms of like the way all of their feeder clubs play. So it's a privileged position for him to be in. I don't think he'll ever get a better job. And it was interesting, you mentioned Xavi leaving Barcelona, and the pressure of that job and the toxicity of that job. He lashed out at the media and I think by extension the club as a whole, and how much it wears you down. And the days of if Barcelona call, you must answer are long gone. I don't see Mikel Arteta leaving Arsenal. He's been slowly building for 4 years now, I think, towards
just half a decade.
Yeah.
Pretty slow burn.
Slow burn. The transfer spend keeps mounting up and up, but the side gets closer and closer to tasting success, and it's not easy to take on City, of course.
Yes,
given they were starting from a pretty low base, let's be honest. But he's got a good job there, and given Barcelona's financial constraints, and given that they've got money tied up in like the little money they do have to splash around, they've got tied up in aging players like Robert Lewandowski, who are not as good as they used to be. It's not an inviting job for a coach like Arteta. I think, Xavi would much prefer to go to the Premier League than Arteta would to go back to Spain. And you think of how long Arteta's been in England as well. Like he played for England. Let's not forget. Yeah. Like, he's not just Spanish.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a huge seismic shift. I really have no idea where Liverpool go now with the coaching search. All of the available kind of big name managers, none of them seem to fit the bill. I think we'll get more of an up and comer in there. I think they'll poach somebody who's already employed at an existing club rather than going for a free agent. And I think it'll be similar to sort of the Klopp situation. I know Klopp left Dortmund, but he was only out of a job for 3 months. He was straight back into it. So I think they'll try and find the next Klopp, the next kind of manager on the upswing of their career. Because when you go for a big name coach, they've already peaked as a manager. So people have suggested Ange. I've suggested Ange, tongue in cheek, of course. I think it comes too early. Also, I don't think anyone really wants to replace Klopp. Like, what do you stand to gain? It's like coming in after Sir Alex at Manchester United. Like, it's too hard an act to follow. I'm sure there are many managers who have the ego and will fancy themselves in that position, but I think if Ange is to ever coach Liverpool, and we know he's a Liverpool fan, I think it will be the manager. He might succeed the manager after Klopp. So, and it's too early into the Tottenham project for him to just up sticks and leave. Like, that would be such a massive betrayal especially of someone who preaches, all of the things he preaches in terms of loyalty and how important it is, to be in touch with the fans and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's in flux at the moment. Who knows if Ten Hag will continue at United? But that Liverpool job is the fascinating one, and we'll see who shapes as the likely successor. I think Xabi Alonso is the front runner for a reason, but he could go on again. He could lose these next 10 games and be out of the picture. So,
certainly. I think you're right. It will be a younger coach that comes in and gets given the task of following up Klopp, and who knows, they could be not just following up Klopp, but following up Klopp after a Premier League winning season. I mean, it doesn't get too much harder than that. Maybe they just give to Dave Moyes. He can be the fall guy like he was at United, and they can try and replace him. But hopefully they don't need as many managers to get it right up after Klopp. United, I think, onto 6th and still searching. So, we'll look at the games that are coming up this weekend now, and we start with Everton taking on Tottenham. Everton's games this year have always been a little bit hard to predict. Obviously, with their points deductions, I don't think the table really tells the full story of how good or bad that side actually is. On their best days, they've looked quite good. On their worst days, they've looked very average. Can Tottenham get the win away from home?
Well, they seem to be pretty hard to score against Everton. They've had 3 scoreless draws in their past 5 games in all competitions.
Yeah.
And they've only conceded the 2 goals that they copped against Luton Town in the cup. So, and that wasn't necessarily a full strength Everton side. Probably like half the first team in that picture. I think this is a tough trip for Spurs, but they tend to get the job done, in these kind of line ball fixtures. It's often the ones you don't expect where Spurs kind of drop the ball. But no, I've been impressed with how they've handled their business of late. They're starting to get the key players back in the side, the spine of the team. We had James Maddison back in the side that defeated Brentford, got the centre-back pairing of Romero and Van de Ven reinstated. Timo Werner's come into the mix to add, another dimension in the absence of Heung-min Son, who hopefully from an Australian perspective, both in terms of the Socceroos and Ange, won't be away at the Asian Cup for too much longer. And they've also got Pape Matar Sarr coming back after Senegal were eliminated from AFCON by Ivory Coast on penalties. He might need a bit of a rest after that game. That was a crazy match, but he'll be another reinforcement to that midfield. How dynamic he is. So I'm optimistic about Tottenham's fortunes over the next month or so, given that we're going to see a lot more familiar faces, and hopefully they can recapture that sort of start of the season form. So I'm going to go for a Tottenham win, maybe 2-1.
Yep, I've got a Tottenham win there too. Brighton take on Crystal Palace. Obviously, Brighton will be very keen to bounce back from a real shocker of a performance this week. Crystal Palace, a team that sort of has been down on their luck. They did get a win in their last match. How do you see this one going?
Well, it was interesting. The Palace fans holding the protest banners the other week. Wasted potential on and off the pitch, weak decisions taking us backwards, which is not the catchiest slogan. I think they could have at least tried to make it rhyme, surely. But they did get the win against Sheffield United. Yes, the bottom side in the league. Eze looks like an absolute star. Elise, the same. So, they're making some good signings still, I feel like you might be expecting too much in this Premier League era. I mean, Crystal Palace, they were out of the Premier League for so long.
Yeah.
Like just being a mid-table side who takes big scalps every now and again, that might be their lot in life. I'm sorry, but the delusions of grandeur, incredible. It is a bit odd that they have Roy Hodgson still in the dugout yet again. But look, I find this one incredibly hard to predict. I mean, Brighton are just up and down, like we touched on. Look at the nature of the goals that they conceded against Luton. It was often, in line with their core principles, playing out from the back and getting caught. Away at Luton's probably like a nightmare fixture for them in hindsight because it's such a small ground.
Yeah.
People don't realise this, that there is actually quite a big difference in pitch dimensions across football. Like there's a maximum and a minimum, and an extra
and it's a big range. It's actually quite a big range.
Yeah, an extra 5 or 10 meters, widthwise or lengthwise can make a huge difference to the way a pitch plays. Like the New Camp, for example, it's a massive deck, and Luton feels even more claustrophobic than it is because the fans are right on top of you and everything. So that they kind of suckered Brighton into playing straight into the middle of the press and capitalised on the mistakes. And that's what you should do as an underdog. I think Crystal Palace will try and do the same. I'm going to sit in the fence here and go for a draw.
Yep. I've gone a Brighton win just because I think the up and down nature of their season means they're due a win. And that principle served me well last week. So I'll go with that again. Burnley taking on Fulham. I've opted for the draw here. How are you seeing this one?
Yeah, this is kind of a tough one. Again, like the fixtures this week are pretty tough to predict. I don't think Burnley are playing that well. Yes, they had City last week, but they didn't beat Luton at home, which is a game you sort of have to be winning. They've been competitive in every game. I think Fulham are pretty hard to score against at the moment. They're just struggling to score goals. I think if they find their scoring touch, maybe 1-0 Fulham.
Yep. Then we have Newcastle taking on Luton Town. So I've backed Newcastle for that one. How are you seeing that?
Yeah, Newcastle got back to winning ways. A good scalp to take against Villa, and they look strong from set pieces. They've had a poor run, but surely it'll even out eventually, and it seems to be. So I'm going to go for a Newcastle win.
Sheffield taking on Aston Villa. How do you see that one?
I think you got to back Aston Villa there. Even if big Harry Souttar comes through the door at Sheffield United, as he's been linked with, he's not getting any game time at Leicester under Enzo Maresca. So they might be looking to pounce and reinforce their defensive stocks, but he won't be back in time for this one, even if he does get picked up. So I'm going to go for a Villa win.
Yeah, Aston Villa, I think the clear favourites there. Bournemouth taking on Nottingham Forest. I've struggled to separate these two, so I've gone for a draw. How are you seeing that one?
Yeah, well, we haven't seen Bournemouth play against West Ham, and they've got the shorter turnaround.
Yeah.
Forest keep losing by a goal, which is pretty demoralising, but they're still competitive against good teams like Brentford and Arsenal. I think a draw is a good prediction.
Yep. Chelsea taking on Wolves. Two teams that are hard to back for a win at the moment. So I've sort of had them cancel each other out for a draw. If I had to pick one team to win, I'd probably sort of think Chelsea might just get it done. But I've opted for the draw there. How are you seeing that one?
Well, Chelsea are a mid-table team now, so I think they can beat other mid-table teams. I will never back them against the top six at the moment, but I'll lean towards a Chelsea win.
Yeah, they're very tight. Even in the table, I think there's only two points between them. So it should be a winnable game for Chelsea. That seems to be their level at the moment. Man United taking on West Ham. Again, short turnaround. Oh, well, for both sides, really. They're playing tomorrow morning. How do you think that one might play out? It was a bit of a disaster for United last time they took on West Ham, but they're at home this time. Does that swing it in United's favour?
Well, David Moyes finally broke his streak of away games against the big four or the old big four, Liverpool, Chelsea, United Arsenal. He hadn't won in like his entire managerial career or something. He finally broke that streak this season. I don't think they're going to win here, but I think it might be a score draw. Kudus is back from African Nations Cup duty. So I think he might get on the score sheet there. I think that's the tip for me, but I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw.
Yeah, he was very good against Man United last time they played as well. So very, very handy in. I think the home aspect might tip this in Manchester's favour, so I've tipped them for the win. But really, any result there is not going to be too big a surprise. So, I've tipped United for the win though. Arsenal taking on Liverpool in the marquee fixture of the round. Both sides had important wins on the in the midweek games. Obviously, we've touched on Liverpool's win. Arsenal got it done over Nottingham. Arsenal at home. I still think Liverpool have looked by far the better team overall. If they can execute on that again, I don't think Arsenal can beat them. Where do you see this one going?
I think we're going to see goals. That might be the kiss of death for this game. Predicting that, but I have to lean towards Liverpool. I'm going for like a 3-2. I think it's going to be a really good game.
Yeah, and then the round rounds off with Brentford taking on Manchester City. Hard to see past Man City in this one.
Yeah, I'm almost never tip against City, and you're never wise to, really. They drop the odd point here and there, but if you tip them to win every week, I think you're going to come up ahead. So, Brentford are a decent side. They can mix it with the top teams, but they don't often beat them. I'm going to go for a City win, maybe by a couple of goals.
Fantastic. All right, well, we'll look a bit closer to home now. We've got the A-League, and I think this week it's really all been about what's happened in the transfer market and that side of things. We've seen players leave. We've seen players return. It's really been an interesting couple of days from a squad composition point of view within the A-League. We'll run through some of the sort of headline moves and then we can sort of discuss them, I guess, more individually. Melbourne City have had Jimmy Jego come in, but they lose Aziz Behich, who joins Al Nassr in Saudi Arabia. So he'll be playing alongside Cristiano Ronaldo, which bit of an interesting move for Aziz. We'll see how much he actually plays, but so he won't be coming back to City after the Asia Cup. Adelaide.
Well, that's only a loan move, we should say.
Yeah,
so only for 6 months. And apparently they're paying about $2 million, which I don't know if that's wages inclusive, but whether or not it is, you don't turn that down for a 30-something-year-old left back for 6 months. I've seen some City fans complaining about this, like, we're chasing the title. And yes, I guess they assume that the club has an unlimited budget, which might be true of Manchester City. It's not true of Melbourne City. Speaking to people who work there, they have very strict budgets they have to work in. So I'm sure that money will be reinvested into the team. But that's just too good a deal to turn down. If you're playing it like Moneyball and you're saying, if someone makes an offer that's above the market valuation of the player, we have to sell them. $2 million for a loan move is crazy money.
Crazy.
And, you're going to tell Aziz Behich that you're going to stop him from crossing the ball to Ronaldo, like living out like a childhood fantasy. Like, that's crazy. Like, how are you going to say, Aziz, I'm sorry, but actually we want to win the A-League this season and you're too important to let go. Like, he would never forgive you.
No, it's an unbelievable opportunity.
Best of luck to him, to be honest. Like, I have my feelings about these Saudi Arabian clubs and everything, obviously. But in terms of, going over there and crossing the ball to Ronaldo in the Asian Champions League, which is what has been signed for, is that Asian foreign spot that you can have in the Champions League. So whether he plays that much in the league games, I'm not sure. But I'm sure he'll play in the Champions League games. What a career. What a career.
I mean, when you think of it, like anyone's proper first memory of this guy in a professional setting is him trying to header the ball at ankle height in a grand final for Melbourne Victory. He rediscovers himself as a fullback at Melbourne Heart under John Van Schip, and he's just gone on to have this incredible international career, played in some really good leagues, and he could be, one of the final parts of his career will be playing alongside Cristiano Ronaldo at Al Nassr. It's just a great story, like unbelievable career.
Yeah, a fantastic story. I mean, any player who goes from playing for Green Gully and Hume City down here in NPL Victoria and ends up, playing for clubs like PSV Eindhoven and Istanbul, Başakşehir, and now Al Nassr, and nearly 70 caps for Australia.
Yeah.
Like, what a career! What a player he's been, and no, good luck to him, to be honest. Like, and they'll get him back in 6 months' time. Having had this incredible experience, I wonder whether Ronaldo did end up stumbling across the clip of him shirt fronting Lionel Messi at the World Cup and thought, "This is my guy. Like, this is the guy we're bringing in. That's the kind of attitude we need around here."
It could be. Could be. I like to think Ronaldo's front and center of all of Al Nassr's transfer dealings. So obviously a big fan of Aziz Behich, which is great. Two other players leaving the A-League at the other end of their career. We've got Alexander Popovic and Joe Gauci from Adelaide United heading to Gwangju FC in South Korea and Aston Villa respectively. Good moves for both of them. Obviously losses to the A-League, but great to see Popovic make, I think, what's a good natural step for him into Asia, and Gauci obviously an amazing opportunity to head straight into the Premier League. Be interesting to see what Aston Villa do with him. They obviously have one of the best keepers in the world in Emi Martinez as their number one. So whether he's going to be an understudy, whether he's going to be sent out on loan, will be interesting to see. But a great experience for Gauci, and hopefully an experience that makes him a better goalkeeper and prospect for the Socceroos.
Yeah, and I mean, some reports have said he's going to be their backup goalkeeper. So sorry to Robin Olsen, apparently, who Villa fans seem to think is the worst goalkeeper in the world. He's played 70 times for Sweden. He's not that bad.
Yeah.
He might have made a couple of mistakes in Premier League games, and he's no Emi Martinez, but who is? Like, Emi Martinez might be the best goalkeeper in the world. Yeah. So tough assignment for Joe Gauci, but I'm sure he'll have some good role models to learn off in training. And, is this a move where Aston Villa see a bit of FFP potential in him and think they can flip him for 5 or 10 times his transfer fee in 6 to 12 months' time to a championship club? Sure, fine. That's great. That gets his foot in the door in England. Having Aston Villa on your CV is a good look. Again, the experience in training. Whether he ever plays a first team game for Villa, I'm not sure. I would love to see it, obviously, and I wish him all the best in breaking through there. But they're a massive club. It's a huge step. I think Joe Gauci is a great goalkeeper. And, we've seen Tom Glover play in the championship a little bit. I think Gauci's a better goalkeeper than Tom Glover. I think he's got a higher ceiling. He's got bigger reach. He's probably more reliable in terms of holding the ball. So I think he can go even further than that. So, I'm really excited about that. In terms of Popovic, I think he's a great prospect for the national team, especially, and going to a good league in the K-League. I just hope he doesn't get kind of forgotten about, out of sight, out of mind over there. We've seen it happen with a couple of players where they seem to be playing well for their K-League clubs, but they've just fallen out of the national team picture entirely. If he can play regular football for Gwangju, that's a great move. It does reflect where the A-League is headed in terms of being a selling league. And we've said it for years, the A-League has to be a selling league. We have to play young players, get minutes in their legs, get them noticed, get them off to Europe or Asia for a transfer fee. When it actually happens to your club and to your favourite player, it's not quite as pleasant. I think we're seeing that, especially with Adelaide fans at the moment. They seem pretty miserable about all their best players leaving. Iran Kunda going off to Bayern and whatever. And the team not playing especially good football in the meantime. But this is the reality. This is where the A-League sits in the global football pecking order. And I think Adelaide will get huge prestige over the fact that they flogged 2 goalkeepers. Let's not forget about Stephen Hall going to Brighton. 2 goalkeepers to Premier League clubs over the last month or so.
It's a fact of the league, and it's something if we stick on the outgoing transfers that Central Coast Mariners fans have had to get used to. Obviously, I don't know if this one's actually been confirmed, but the strong rumor is that Angel Torres is off to the I think the K League or the
Blue One Sue Wings is the Sue One Blue Wings. Sorry, one of my radio presenters I used to produce for once called them Blue Wand Sue Wings on air. So that's become a running joke for us. But no, he's off to a really big club in Korea from the sounds of things, and I have no reason to doubt that given the recent Mariners transfer activity. They're not in the business of holding on to a player that they got, for free when there's high six figures being offered or whatever it is for Torres. Like, he's only been there 6 months. He's been great. He's been so much fun. But if they back their scouting network to find another Angel Torres and just keep doing this and keep really rehabilitating the careers of like Portuguese or Brazilians or whatever who've fallen through the cracks in Europe and then flogging them off to Asia for good fees, go for it. That's a fantastic model. And then we get, 6 to 12 months of Angel Torres or whoever the next one is in the A-League. So I back it. It's a bit sad we don't get to finish the season with him. I would have liked to have him until May, but such is the moving parts of the transfer market that this kind of offer may not come in again.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you understand the financial realities of the league, and you understand that this is the way that clubs are going to remain financially viable. But you do feel for the fans. When I was looking up this move, I stumbled on the A-League Reddit, and I was just reading some of the reaction from Central Coast Mariners fans, and there was one fan saying, not a Central Coast fan, but just I think an A-League fan, sort of talking about what you've said. This is a great strategy for A-League clubs, rehabilitating careers of young South Americans who have maybe had promising starts in Europe or promising starts to their career but haven't quite found their best form. If we can get them here, get them in front of a willing and buying audience like in Japan and Korea and selling them for profit, that's great for the clubs and for the leagues. And then, there was Central Coast fans saying, yeah, well, you can't keep doing that and crying poor. Why would you buy a membership to see your best players constantly sold and being in a constant state of rebuild? It's a tough one, because at the end of the day, what's more important for the clubs? Is it the money gained from transfer or actually having fans wanting to come and watch your team play? And I mean, the reality might be that it's more profitable to just not have fans and continue to turn over players, right? I guess in some ways. I mean, Central Coast maybe not the best example. They're the reigning champions and they're still very much in the hunt to potentially go back to back, given their recent form. Obviously, losing Torres is a big blow for them. And it's not the first big player they've lost this season or heading into this season. I guess what's the message from the club to fans who have to watch their best players sort of get shipped away every year? It's easy for us to say as commentators, it's great for the club and the leagues, but if you're spending your hard earned on going to watch these games, buy memberships, it can be a bit of pill to swallow.
Yes, but think of where the Mariners were, 5 years ago. Like, they were signing all of their players who were rejects from other A-League clubs from one agent. Yep. They were completely enthralled to one agent, which is just a nightmare scenario for any team.
Yep.
They were bottom of the league. They were losing 8-0 to some like their biggest rivals, 8-1. They were completely unwatchable in a tire fire. Now they're one of the most watchable teams in the league still. And they're just an endless production line for young Australian talent and great foreign talent, and sometimes a mixture of the two when you talk about the cum dog. I don't hate it. I think we need a bit of perspective here and think about where the Mariners were and where they've come from. And they're always going to be like a small market team that has to punch above their weight. They're the reigning A-League champions. Like, that's an extraordinary achievement. And they've won it, 3 times now?
Yeah.
Or is it twice? I can't remember. But they've been great value for the competition, considering the club is literally based in Gosford.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing that Gosford has a national sporting team in a national competition. And, long may it continue. Like, I think they're fantastic value, and they've got, a great kind of tight-knit group of supporters who have found something to believe in now and are coming back in droves. They just have to embrace their identity as, a cradle for Australia's next great players, and whatever foreign players pass through, hopefully they make a positive impact. If they go, they go. That's a success story. And then if they wash out of the K League, they might come back to Australia. We've seen it with Daniel Pena. They're always, it endears Australia to them in future as an option. So, yeah, I don't think it may not be the last we've seen of Marco Tullio or Evangel Torres if it doesn't go the way they hope in Korea.
Yeah. No, definitely two sides. And I think, like you say, if you've been a Mariners fan for a long time, you'd much rather be in this position than the one you were, 5 years ago. Big round of games coming up, so we'll preview those. It kicks off with Brisbane Roar taking on the Wellington Phoenix. An interesting game. Brisbane Roar have brought in Marco Rojas, the Kiwi Messi. Is he a key for Ben Khan to maybe turn their fortunes around?
Yeah, look, it's a tough one. Zavada's back, and I struggle to see Brisbane getting a result if Zavada's back in the form that we know from him. I think I'm leaning towards the Phoenix here.
Yep. Phoenix also brought in a Costa Rican, Houston Salas, who's played at a World Cup for Costa Rica. So they've obviously signalled their intention of trying to strengthen from a position of strength and maintain their grip at the near the top of the table. I've tipped
first Costa Rican at Phoenix since Kenny Cunningham, I think. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while.
There's a storied history of Costa Ricans in the A-League. I mean, you talk about Carlos Hernandez, but also Marco Arena more recently, John Carlos Solorzano, who was great at Brisbane and not so great at Victory. There've been a few misses as well. Jose Luis Lopez or Marvin Angulos, or apparently someone named Stephen Bryce, who I don't remember at all. So, hit and miss.
Hit and miss. Hopefully, for Phoenix, Salas can be a hit. I've tipped Wellington for the win there as well. Perth Glory take on Melbourne City. Perth did get a slight win in the transfer market. Josh Rawlins coming back into this, coming to Perth on loan from FC Utrecht. So maybe some good news there for Alan Stajic. Tough assignment against Melbourne City. They are at home though, so I don't know if that's still really that big a factor. How are you seeing that one go?
Yeah, interesting one. City aren't in tremendous form, but they did get the win over Adelaide in that Thursday night game. The Aurelio Vidmar derby, I guess we were calling it. Perth are scoring regularly. They're conceding regularly. I think this one might be a score draw.
Yep. I think I'll tip Melbourne City in this one. I think they'll have enough about them to get the win. Western United taking on Sydney FC. Thoughts on that one? I think probably hard to see past Sydney FC though.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go for Sydney here. They'll be reeling from the red card last week. I think they tweeted 13 times about it. So clearly it didn't get to them at all. No, I think Sydney are red hot at the moment. They would have done better against Victory if they'd had 11 players on the park. And I think they'll beat Western United.
Yep. Newcastle Jets taking on Melbourne Victory. Again, probably it's only the fact that it's away that makes me doubt maybe Victory's ability to get a win. They're still, they're subject to drawing winnable games. So I have a bit of doubt there, but I think I'm still tipping Victory there.
Yeah, I think I'll lean towards Victory here. I think maybe 2-1. I wouldn't bet against Apostolos Stamatolopoulos getting on the score sheet though.
Yep. Adelaide United taking on Central Coast Mariners. Two teams we've just spoken a bit about there in terms of outgoing players. Does that change anything in terms of how you think this game might go?
Well, no, I mean, Gauchi is on Asian Cup duty, so it doesn't really change the outlook for Adelaide. I guess Popovic leaving is a blow, and they are a little short in central defence. The Mariners, I think they're in good shape regardless. They've got lots of attacking weapons. They're good on the counter attack, so that can make up for maybe a loss of invention with Tullio and Torres leaving recently. I think I'm going to lean towards the Mariners here.
Yep. And then the last game of the round, Macarthur FC taking on Western Sydney Wanderers. I guess one of the bigger stories out of Western Sydney is obviously Milos Ninkovic announcing his retirement. He's been an amazing contributor to the A-League, not necessarily in the red and black of Western Sydney, but still an amazing player we've been really, I guess, sort of blessed to have on Aussie shores. Before we tip the game, any thoughts on that news?
Yeah, I guess it was always coming.
Yeah.
One of the all-time greats, probably top 3 A-League players ever. Maybe top 1, depending on who you ask. So weird coda to his A-League career, leaving Sydney in slightly acrimonious circumstances and going to the Wanderers because Sydney didn't want to give him a spot on their roster unless his citizenship came through in time, which he had no control over. So yeah, very, very odd end, the whole thing. And he did have that one moment for the Wanderers in the derby, I guess, when he teed up Yengi for the winner. But Sydney had the last laugh, beating them in the final. So incredible player of invention, big game performer, basically did it all. And wish him well in his retirement. I'm sure he's going to stay in Australia. He seems pretty settled here. So whether he gets into coaching or whether we see him on a broadcast, he's not the most outgoing personality. So I wonder whether he's going to want to do media stuff. But one of the greats. And it looks like if we trust the rumor mill, Sonny Kittel, the Polish attacking midfielder, is going to be the next player targeted by the Wanderers. He's played a long time at Hamburg and Ingolstadt. He was a teammate of Matt Leckie's, I believe.
Okay.
So great pedigree, terrible injury history, but his recent injury history has been better. So you weigh that up, I suppose, but he's only 31. He looks like a great replacement.
Yep, will be interesting to see how they go about making that transition. The game itself, though, Macarthur FC v Western Sydney Wanderers, how are you sort of tipping that? These are two teams, really close on the table. Do Western Sydney Wanderers get the win here?
I think I'm gonna lean Western Sydney. Macarthur have just been unreliable. They're so inconsistent. And they drew with Perth on the weekend. I think the Wanderers can try and lock them down. Yeah, I'm going to lean towards Western Sydney.
Yeah, I think Macarthur might be able to snatch a draw here, so I'll tip the draw. Yeah. There is another midweek game which we might just have a quick look at. We've got a Tuesday night fixture between Wellington Phoenix and Central Coast Mariners. I'm not sure why that's being played on Tuesday. Is that some sort of makeup game or?
It might be 12? Something to do with Mariners' Asian commitments, but it's the semi-finals of the AFC Cup coming up, so maybe they're trying to rearrange games. It could be anything with the A-League, to be honest. Maybe they don't have a pitch to play.
The A-League website says this is from round 12, so yeah, I'm not really sure what happened in round 12, but anyway, so we've got some midweek football to predict. That's a interesting game, to be fair. It's at Sky Stadium over in New Zealand. Does it the midweek factor and the travel factor tip this in Wellington's favour? Obviously, Wellington have to come back from Brisbane as well, so a bit of a heavy week for both sides. Who are you tipping there?
Well, I think I'm going to tip Wellington. They've got the Central Coast have got the shorter turnaround from Saturday, and then having to go away for the second game, which I think is worse than coming home. I think Wellington are probably the better team as well. So I'm happy to go with a Wellington win. 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. What a strange time slot.
Yeah, crazy.
Well, of course, it's not 2 p.m. in Wellington.
Yeah,
but even so,
no, must not be a weird time slot for Wellington. I think I'll join you in tipping Wellington for the win in that one. So that wraps up, I guess, all the games for the A-League and the podcast for this week. Thanks again, Josh, for joining me. Be sure to check out the My Betting Mates columns. We have the Premier League Pulse and the A-League Alert, which will be on the site this week. Josh, once again, thank you for joining me.
Always a pleasure, Matt.
And we'll see you all next week.